Well, good afternoon, friends. I'm Reverend Jeffrey Moore, and this is,
I'm Reverend Heather Goddess.
and we're pastors at St. Stephen United Methodist Church in Mesquite, Texas, and we're glad to welcome you to another episode of Face to Face with Racism, difficult conversations about covert forms of racism and white supremacy. We are guided by James Baldwin's statement that you can't change what you don't face. So we're trying to face racism straight on so that we can work at changing it. And we're guided by a explanation of forms of racism that often go unseen, that are covert, that often we think are benign or actually helpful, but end up being oppressive.
As white people.
As white people, right, to be clear. This is our problem. Racism, our problem. So today our topic is Eurocentric beauty standards. And we have two guests with us today, Shantara McBride and Sarah Callie. So I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves and offer some opening thoughts, and we'll get started. Shantara, lead us off.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody, or evening, or night, or hi. So my name is Shantara McBride. I'm the founder of a social enterprise called Marvelous University. I get to travel when the outside was open and really talk to young people and people young at heart on how to be marvelous. And we'll talk more about that later. But I'm also a preacher, a teacher, an author, an educator. I do all the things. And I'm a Black woman, who lives here in Dallas, Texas. And so I'm really, really honored to be here and really thankful to be a part of this conversation.
Shantara, can you talk to us just shortly about some of your experience, perhaps with Eurocentric beauty standards,
Absolutely.
how you've encountered those, how you experience them? Yeah.
Sure. So when I think of and when I hear Eurocentric beauty, I think about the standard of beauty. And when you look at something as the standard, that means that's your baseline. That's where you're starting from. And so when I think about, especially traveling, I will panic if I am going to another town. Let's say I travel to New Hampshire a lot. And if anybody here is from New Hampshire and you're watching, I really love New Hampshire. It's one of my favorite places. However, I panic if I travel to New Hampshire and I forget any of my hair products. I mean, anything from the conditioner that I use on my hair, from the spray that I put in my hair, whether it's braided up like it is now, or if I wear it out in my curly fro. If I have to go to the grocery store or even Walmart, which is supposed to carry all the things, and I'm going to need something for my hair, there's a panic because I know, or I guess, no, I'm pretty sure that Walmart or whatever store that is isn't going to have the products that I need, because the standard isn't my hair. The standard isn't what the products that I use all the time. The same thing with makeup. If I am traveling, especially, again, love New Hampshire, love New England. However, if I'm traveling to certain parts, I panic if I forgot my makeup case. Because if I have to go into that store that anybody else standard of beauty can walk into and pick up powder or pick up blush or pick up lip gloss, or gosh forbid, when I used to wear pantyhose, whenever anybody used to wear pantyhose, standard of beauty, nude was not Shantara nude. No. Nude. So when you think about Eurocentric beauty, that really is setting the foundation of what the standard of beauty is. And if you are a person of color moving in this world, you realize very quickly Eurocentric beauty is the standard. And that means that you may have to search a little bit more, or you may not be able to have what you need. And so when you think about being oppressed, not being able to go to a regular store and get what I need, that means that I will have lack. right? Just in picking out lip gloss, just in picking out something from my hair, just in picking out pantyhose. And so every time I hear Eurocentric beauty, I think about what America, what the world has deemed to be the standard. And then that's when people get excited about BandAids. 100 years it's been around. And all of a sudden, they thought we should probably get some BandAids that aren't just nude, because the nude doesn't fit people of color. So that's just been just a few, and that's everyday stuff. That's that's everyday moving through the world, thinking about what I'm going to need in order to function. When it's stuff that other people you just go to the store, you go to the aisle, you pick out what you need, you go home. It's not the same when you're living as a person of color.
So, what? Go ahead. I think this is an interesting point, and it seems very about the Band-Aid. Seems very benign, but I put on a Band-Aid that's quote unquote flesh colored,
Yeah.
right? And the whole intention is to hide that I'm injured.
Yeah.
Right? Is to camouflage it. So you put on a Band-Aid that's flesh colored. It actually highlights,
Absolutely.
or brings attention to the fact that you're injured,
Absolutely.
right? That you're wounded,
Absolutely.
that you have a vulnerability.
Absolutely.
Now, we might think about this and say, well, that's ridiculous. I mean, it doesn't really matter if someone sees that you have a Band-Aid on or not. Okay, but if that's the case, then why are white people and the industry that's supporting us trying to hide it in the first place?
Absolutely.
You know, if it's not a big deal, then why not make them pink or orange or, you know?
They have those too.
Sure.
Well, I know, but only.
Well, they do, and that was the other thing. That was supposed to be you can use the Kate Spade Band-Aids, or you can use Wonder Woman, or and so it was supposed to be all these other substitutes, and that you felt like that's not it. You still missing the mark. It's still missing the mark.
Right. I'm not putting on Wonder Woman Band-Aids. I mean, I would, but.
Well, I mean, the same thing can be said about women clergy, right? So, well, you can be, a teacher. You can do this. You can do this. Why do you have to be an ordained pastor? Yeah. No. It's the same.
You can just be a good evangelist or a good missionary. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's shift over to Sarah and the introduction of the idea of nude. Is perhaps a good transition because Sarah has spent some time working in the beauty industry, and I'll let her tell you more about that. So, Sarah.
My name is Sarah Cowley. I'm a professional makeup artist for a major beauty retailer, but also a writer, like definitely more of a writer than a makeup artist, honestly. But I'm a self-taught makeup artist. So that comes with its own set of interesting challenges. As far as how I identify racially, I don't know, because obviously I'm white, like very, very white, but I'm biracial. And so I grew up with a Mexican father and a white mother. And so that formed a different kind of cultural identity. And so it's weird for me to navigate. Being. Yeah, I know we're getting sound issues. It's weird for me to navigate being white and also not white, if that makes sense. So there's this, disconnect of. It's a very profound disconnect, actually, because in a Hispanic culture, if you don't speak Spanish, that's just it. You're not there. And my Spanish is horrible. It's absolutely abysmal. And so from a language perspective and also a skin perspective, that I'm not Hispanic to anyone that's not my family, right? They're the people who see me, but nobody else sees me. Society doesn't see me. It's a weird no man's land, I guess. And so growing up, what I really wanted was darker skin, because nobody would clock me as anything. And it was really weird. And it's a weird journey to have, I guess. And especially when you're a makeup artist, you do something called color matching, which is matching people's foundation, right? And so you have to be really good at looking at someone and then finding a bottle that matches them. Now, I work in Mesquite, and Mesquite is very, very, very diverse. So imagine that your job doesn't train you how to do this, right? And you have to go and stare at somebody for like an uncomfortable amount of time and then pick a bottle that says something about them. And one of the things that I personally hate about the beauty industry, we're talking about nude, right? The color names of foundation. Oh my goodness. If you have seen, right, you've seen these, right? They're absolutely ridiculous. Like my biggest pet peeve is when they're food items, right? I will tell you right now that in one of my favorite foundations, I am the shade custard. Yeah, that's just icky, guys. That's just icky. And what is it? So that's a thing, you're white or you're not. Because, when you have deeper skin tones, you're like cocoa, right? Like mocha, and it's like all food. I don't get it at all. I don't get it at all. Or vanilla, right? Like caramel. There's all these kinds of weird coded words for what people look like. And it's just like, I know that as an artist, I would totally prefer if it was like fair 1, fair 2, right? Although there's discussions of the word fair too, which is, but like light, very light, medium deep, like the brands that do that are really smart because we want to know like the numbers in the undertone. We don't want to know like what food item we look like. Right. So I guess my intro would be that I'm somebody who doesn't have a strong, I don't have a strong identity as far as physical, how I'm perceived, because I just don't know. And I don't fit with the body that I'm in a weird way. And I'm sure I could unpack that for hours and then we would just be here sitting. But that's not really for this discussion, but it's more of a understanding how you see your body and yourself and helping people be confident. And oh my gosh, shade ranges, why are they horrible?
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued by so much in there. What, like the whole food thing, this had never occurred to me. But when I hear you presenting it in this way, it seems like a covert form of actually patriarchy and sexism.
Oh, yeah.
Because food is something that is consumed, right? It's to be eaten. And presumably the food that we consume is food that we desire. So there's this undertone of desire, like cocoa or a mocha. A mocha sounds really good to me because I love drinking mochas. So when I hear the word mocha, it evokes in me a very visceral, literally, a gut level desire to consume something. This feels really icky to me all of a sudden. This would have never occurred to me. So I need to just sort of name that and then sit it on the shelf and let it simmer for a little bit. But in terms of standards, then, do you see, Sarah, I'm interested in your context, do you see a biasing towards whiteness in terms of the way things are named, in terms of palette choices, this idea of nude, that somehow this skin color is nude and then it all moves from there?
I would say that there's just no availability of foundation shades that match everybody. Like, honestly, there are certain ranges that I can match people to, and then there are some that like if you were to come in, Shantara, and you were to say, hey, I want a matte foundation and I want, XYZ, right? There is very little. Ooh. we hear you. Oh, yeah, you can hear me? Okay. There's very little that I could actually show you.
Yeah.
Like, it would be limited. And you know that, and I know that, but I think that a lot of people watching don't get that there would be this weird experience of where we would look at each other awkwardly, especially if you wanted a particular line, or you said, no, I want, XYZ brand. I'd have to look at you and be like, let's get real. We can't do this. And that's horrible. Why do I have to do that? Because they're right. That's a rock and a hard place. And for everybody involved, because they should do that, right? They should all do that. And when I learned, I did a little bit of soft research here before I got on, and women of color are 80%, they buy 80% more cosmetics than the general female market. So you've got to tell me, why are we not catering? Well, not even catering. Why are we not representing you guys, right? Like, that's dumb. Your money, right? At the very level, your money and well-run government.
You would think. I mean, but that is why, that's why I get so excited when I see, and since we're talking about makeup, when I see makeup artists or makeup brands or makeup companies that are started and ran by Black women. Like, I get really, really excited, but I know the mainstream stores don't carry those brands. The mainstream departments don't carry those brands. You won't even see an ad for them in mainstream magazines. So when you think about Eurocentric beauty, the standard is still going to be white, and they are missing out on billions of dollars, missing out on that on us as consumers. But it's okay. We're making women of color millionaires and billionaires, but they're missing out. And I think that's the unfortunate piece, is that the industry doesn't see women of color, doesn't see Black women as viable consumers, which is crazy. I mean, it is crazy. It is crazy. If they, like you, Sarah, did their research and saw that companies that cater to Black women do very, very well. However, at the same time, there have been some companies, and I would say, like, when I think about Carol's Daughter, for example, was started by a Black woman, and then it did very, 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 very well. And she decided to sell it. And I can't remember which, I think she sold it to L'Oreal, or she sold it to a predominantly white ran company, and people were up in arms. It's like upset with her, felt like she sold out. And when I was just like, y'all need to look at that whole story, because she also profited off of that, and then it opened up other doors, right? And so we get so, and I think we as people of color get so upset about, well, you can't sell out, you can't sell it to the white men. I'm like, y'all, if you think long term, right? And that's what Lisa, I think her name was Lisa Price, that's what she decided to do. But there are some companies that start to see the value, but the fact that we still, like I said, with BandAids, just discovered that, flesh tone does not mean all people, and decided after 100 years to do something that it's still those kind of things that you're just like, oh gosh, but at least it happened.
So can we go back to hair care for a little bit? Because I know from personal conversation with friends of color that, this is obviously not an issue for me. Hair care for me basically means getting in the shower. But what I took from your earlier comments were that the hair care products you need are not widely available. But what kind of
face is so transparent? Sorry.
Well, I love you.
What kind of hair care products do you require, and what do you have to do to your hair? Like, would you share with us, what is your hair like now?
The whole thing. Like, okay, so I'll give you the short version.
Okay.
The beauty about being a Black woman living in America is that I can switch up my hair every day if I choose to, right? Because there are wigs, there are clip-in weaves, there are things that I can do. And I would share with you one experience. I I've been around white people all my life. Like it's who I am, and I'm thankful. And being in environments with a lot of white people and deciding to switch up my hair. So if you Google me or look on my website, my hair is out and it's curly, and my hair is now braided in. So that means that some hair has been added to my hair, and I have braids. And if I took them down, and I will not because it takes time, and so so my braids are long. I do that maybe twice a year. What's so interesting to me is that there is so much available information on Black hair care on YouTube, or even especially now with social media. But there has been 2 instances that I vividly remember where white women, without my permission, have put their hands within my hair, like just like, oh my goodness, and just then start just rubbing their fingers through my hair. Once when my hair was braided up, and then another when it was just out in its curly fro. And both times, without my permission, have women violated me, because it is a violation. It would not even cross my mind to go up to Heather and say, oh my God, you cut your hair, and put my hands in her hair. Like I just wouldn't do that. That is, and I don't care how much I like her. I don't care how much she's a friend. I just wouldn't do it. But it is something about, I think it's something about when people see Black people, especially when we do something, especially to our hair, it becomes community property. I like to think of it as a woman who's pregnant. No pregnant woman wants you to come up and touch her body. No one. Nobody. Right. And even within our family, it is wise to ask, like, if I can touch you, and if she chooses to say no, you better be okay with that. Right. Pregnant woman. However, when it comes to Black women and our hair, it becomes this community property, as if it is not attached to our head. Again, it's a violation. It is a complete violation. And both times, one time when my hair was out and the woman put her hand within, because I thought something was flying on my head. And so I did like that. And then I was like, she did it again. And this time her fingers touched my scalp. For true story. And I turned around and I said, why are you touching me? And then she got all flustered and was just, and then another white woman rescued her and said she was just curious.
Well,
and let me be clear, I didn't know them. Still don't. They were strangers to me. Another woman, I was at a meeting and my hair was braided up, and she came, oh my God, Shantara did, and just put her hands within my head. Now, what she didn't know, I had already decided the next person that does that to me, I'm going to do the same. So I then took my hand and said, oh my God, she turned red. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, was that uncomfortable for you? You see what I'm saying? Like but it's this thing of I get curiosity, but I always say when I'm curious, I go research, I Google, or I read a book, or unless I am extremely close to you and we have relationship. And then for those who I'm close to, we're friends, they ask, oh my gosh, you braided your hair. Can I? And I get it's interesting, but I think about it as the toys that I grew up with, the dolls that I grew up with. They had hair like white people. So I'm not that interested in playing and braiding in your hair, because I already did that as a little girl. But no white woman, no white dad is going out and buying their child a doll with kinky curly hair. So I get that it's curious, but we not at a place where you can pet and touch.
Yeah. Wow. There's so much that just came up in.
I have some things, but I'm waiting until the after.
Okay.
Dolls and toys. How long did it take to get a doll that didn't have white flesh tone? And we haven't talked about body types.
Mm-hmm.
We're familiar with certain sorts of body shaming, but that's usually in terms of, amongst white people at least, in terms of size.
Mm-hmm.
But there are other types. White bodies and black bodies and brown bodies are not built the same. But there are, I would assume, ways in which you are I mean, are there ways in which you are urged to conform to a white body type? That
Well, I mean,
body shape. What?
Until Sir Mix-a-Lot came along, yeah.
Hey, listen, Sarah, you could. I feel like I've been talking a lot, but I'm just. Yeah, it's not gonna happen for me. It's just.
Oh, so I had a comment actually on what you were saying. Okay, first off, that sounds horrifying.
Oh, for sure.
There's no amount of me being like, oh God, really? That's gonna ever, So I'm just gonna leave that there. But when you were talking about dolls, that really kind of brought it up. That when I was growing up, my favorite doll was Teresa, Barbie's best friend, who was Hispanic. I didn't see myself in Barbie, and the people that were important in my life at that time didn't really look like Barbie. I mean, let's be real, nobody really looks like Barbie. Like,
thankfully, because she wouldn't fall over. Yeah,
she's not really proportioned like people. But to say that, like, I always found, like, I thought her Hispanic friend was the cool one. Yeah. And that's just, because that's who I saw and who I admired and who I liked growing up. And this idea that we don't have representation for everybody is just like, and also there's so much there. Oh gosh, I can't even right? Because that's starting to become an industry. And like you were saying that, like, there's all these wonderful Black-owned beauty brands that people, that are starting to really make headway, and especially with the Black Lives Matter movement, all these people who were not looking out for that, are now all looking out for that too.
Totally intentional.
We need entrepreneurship in that space.
Yeah,
from Black women, absolutely. The thing is that, like, I learned how to do makeup on deeper skin tones from the internet. Like, I learned from Jackie Ina and watching her do her makeup because she's gorgeous and incredible. And, like, the way that she explains her techniques were things that I didn't know and that I didn't see. And there's that level of, I think, influencership where you see people now who are showing, like, this is what my skin looks like, this is what my hair looks like, this is what I do. So there's no excuse to harass your local Black woman for this information, right? There's absolutely no excuse.
Right.
Like, if you were really, really curious, you could go to the internet and look at professional influencers who are like, this is what I do, this is cool. For all audiences, your curiosity should not affect how you interact with other people.
Yeah, it should affect someone's safety. And when I put it in those words, and then when I say it like that, and that's because safety is an issue. And so if I say, no, that is a violation, like, you physically putting your hands on me is a violation. And again, in both instances, it was just like, why are you making such a big deal? And I'm like, that's because you don't value my body the way that I do, which is the issue.
Well, and conversely, their body is not seen as available.
I wouldn't even. I don't want to go to jail.
No, but I'm saying,
but just
your body is viewed with a certain availability. She viewed your body with the right. That
Absolutely.
When you turned that on her, it was like, no, my body is not available for that sort of right.
Yes.
So there's this difference in this unconscious accessibility.
Yeah.
I guess when we're talking about covert racism, that's something that's very deep seated, right? That, like, that if I saw you on the street and I really liked your hair, I would say, hey, I really like your hair, and then walk away, because that's a socially appropriate thing to do, right? And that's me showing you that I appreciate the time and the effort and your expression of feminine beauty without being creepy. Yeah. And I think that, like,
Yeah. I mean, we won't, I don't know if we'll get into this and maybe we'll get into it later, but there is also a difference in appreciating the beauty and then co-opting it, because I think when I think of certain folks that I won't name, but there's a way that people can put on Blackness and then decide to take it off. And so when we talk about this standard of beauty, it's amazing to me how when white people want to go on vacation, the idea is to come back with a tan because you look like you have been somewhere. But this tan is an everyday thing, and yet I have to march through the streets and beg to matter. So we can talk more about that later, but I think it is such an interesting way of looking at beauty and what's beautiful, but then also what gets to exist and what doesn't.
Let's be sure to come back to that in the second half of the conversation. And I don't know if we'll have the opportunity to go there as well, but John Astle has raised the question about male body standards. We've talked a lot about female bodies beauty standards, but are there also male beauty standards out there? I would think there probably are, but we'll have to hold that for the second half of the conversation.
This seems a little bit lighter conversation than last week, but still a lot to unpack and a lot to work through. And so as you are considering these things that we've talked about so far and look forward to the video, the backstage video that comes out later this week, remember to be kind and to give yourself grace as you work toward becoming more and more anti-racist. We look forward to seeing you next week when we talk about a different topic. Not entirely sure remember what it is, but that's okay because that's what makes this fun. And we look forward to seeing you then. Y'all take care.